Good evening, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining the introductory webinar for the South Palo Alto Bikeways project. This webinar will be available in English and Spanish. So if you have not already, please click on the interpretation icon at the bottom of your screen and select the language you wish to hear. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the project website after. My name is Joanna Chan. I am the Senior Transportation Planner for the city. I will be facilitating and kicking off the presentation tonight, and I would like to welcome a few others with me tonight. From our consultant team, Steve Davis from Fair and Peers will be leading the presentation in English, and Ingrid Bayuz Ahmed from Fair and Peers will be leading the presentation in Spanish. From the city, Sylvia Starlack will be facilitating the question and answer sessions, and Jose Palma will be assisting. This evening, we will provide an overview of the South Palo Alto Bikeways project background, existing conditions, and guide you through potential improvements under consideration. We will also let you know how to participate in other upcoming engagement opportunities and answer questions you may have. We will stop midway through our presentation to answer questions from the Q&A window, and we'll answer more questions at the end of the at the end of the presentation. To ask a question in the Q&A window, click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and type your question into the text box. To raise your hand and ask a question, click on the raised hand icon at the bottom of your screen or *9 if you're on the phone at the end of the presentation. We will call your name and unmute you when it is your turn to speak. It is our pleasure to introduce you to the South Palo Alto Bikeways project, and we look forward to hearing your feedback tonight. The city submitted an application for the project to the VERBS program grant in 2017, which stands for Vehicle Emissions Reductions Based at Schools. The project was awarded $919,000 in 2016 dollars for construction. The project was awarded to improve bicycle facilities on 3 segments: the Waverly Bike Path, East Meadow Drive between Alma Street and Fabian Way, and Fabian Way between East Meadow Drive and East Charleston Road. As part of the grant requirement, the project must include a protected bikeway segment on East Meadow Drive and/or Fabian Way. We will provide additional information on what protected bikeways are later on in the presentation. Additionally, the project must initiate the construction phase in early 2023. Here is a project map showing the project segments in green. These corridors serve as key routes for students traveling to multiple schools, as well as connections to various community facilities, such as Mitchell Park Library and Community Center, Ramos Park, JCC, and the Highway 101 pedestrian bike bridge project and Adobe Creek Reach Trail that is currently under construction. City Council received a project update earlier this year on January 25th. We are currently conducting the first phase of community engagement on concept plan alternatives. Our goal is to return to council in the summer with feedback from the community. We're conducting this initial phase of community engagement to share preliminary project ideas with the community, and we'll ask council determine next steps for the project. And depending on council's direction, following this first phase will be the design phase roughly this fall, council approval on the construction contract and initiation of the construction phase are anticipated in early 2023. We aim to connect with the community during each project phase using a variety of engagement methods. So now I would like to turn the presentation over to Steve, who will speak in more detail about existing conditions, potential improvements, and upcoming engagement opportunities.
Thank you, Joanna. So we'll begin with the Waverly Path that connects East Meadow Drive with East Charleston Road adjacent to JLS and Herbert Hoover schools. The existing path is bumpy with uneven surfaces and in places due to tree root intrusion. The path is also directly adjacent to a chain link fence that you can see on the right here, which interferes with bicycle handlebars. And these two issues have led to falls and collisions for students cycling. Potential approaches to address the existing conditions would include widening of the path where feasible to accommodate larger flows, repaving and regrading the path to provide a smoother surface, and replacing the chain link fence with a different type of separation. Because the existing chain link fence is at handlebar height, replacing that with something shorter will generally improve riders' experiences. Moving on to East Meadow Drive, this is a corridor that sees quite a bit of bicycle usage as a key link to several parks and schools, in addition to connecting across the Caltrain tracks. This is a school commute corridor and a popular bike route. The corridor has standard bike lanes with on-street parking on both sides of the street today. As can be seen in the photo on the left here, cyclists currently ride between vehicular traffic and parked vehicles, and people entering or exiting the driver's side of parked cars open their doors into the bike lane. Additional facilities are needed on East Meadow Drive to accommodate peak school commute traffic volumes. Potential changes to improve bicyclist visibility and safety include installing a protected or buffered bike lane that would require some parking reconfiguration or removal. Fabian Way currently has two vehicular travel lanes in each direction, with a bike lane heading westbound toward East Charleston Road and a shared bike parking lane eastbound towards 101. The shared eastbound facility causes dooring exposure for cyclists similar to that described on East Meadow Drive. And as seen in the photo at the right here, large vehicles utilizing parking can result in relatively little space available for bicyclists. Given the large crossing distances, traffic volumes and speeds, and current lane configuration, riding on or crossing Fabian Way as part of a walking or biking school commute with children is a challenge. Parents have indicated that they won't bike to school from here with the existing facilities. Potential improvements along Fabian Way could include enhancing bicyclist visibility by eliminating on-street parking to add buffers and eliminate dooring risk while maintaining the existing travel lanes, or reducing the number of vehicular travel lanes to introduce protected bike lanes while maintaining parking in the eastbound direction. Any improvements on Fabian Way would be coordinated with ongoing development of the Charleston-Arrastradero Improvement Project. Okay, so we're gonna pause here for a few minutes. When we return, we'll share examples of what potential treatments may look like and discuss next steps for the project. We will take questions that are typed into the chat during this time. It is currently, oh, actually I don't see the clock right now. It is currently 6:45. So we'll take a 5-minute pause and return to continue the webinar at 6:50.
So at this time, we also want to get a better understanding of participants listening in Spanish. So if you're listening in Spanish, could you please raise your hand at this time? Okay, thank you. So if you have any questions right now, please feel free to type it into the Q&A box. And you will find that at the bottom of your screen. Sylvia, could you let us know if there are any open questions?
Yes, thanks, Joanna. The first question is construction of this project contingent upon securing additional funding, or is the approximately $1 million in existing VERBS funds sufficient for the project?
So the approximately 1 million existing VERBS fund is actually for construction, which is anticipated to begin in early 2023. So currently where we're going through is the planning and as well as the design phase, which is in our city budget.
Okay. The next question is, have you researched whether there is a quote unquote commute direction, or given the large number of schools, are both directions in use, both morning and afternoon?
So I am going to ask Steve to maybe give a little bit more details on this question, but we did go out to do counts for this project. So I don't know if you have more details that you could share, Steve.
I'm not sure if this relates to bike commute direction or car commute direction. But I can also add after Steve takes a crack at it.
Sure. So that does speak to two different issues, of course. As Joanna mentioned, we have collected more recent data, but also are aware that that data, having been collected during the last few months, was also somewhat affected by the current uncertainties around COVID-19. In general, bicycle commute traffic actually is fairly high, or bicycle traffic is fairly high in both directions, particularly along East Meadow. And since East Meadow in general is observed to have a greater mix of, in normal times, of local traffic and commute traffic in each direction, it's a little bit more balanced. I think, as most people are probably familiar with, Fabian Way, given its context, tends to have a little bit more of an actual commute flow for people that are traveling to the business along the corridor. So it peaks a little bit more traditionally along with like the AM and PM work commutes, as opposed to as much with the school commutes in terms of vehicle traffic.
Okay. So from a bicyclist or from a safe routes to school perspective, these routes are, from a bicyclist perspective, these routes are used by adult cyclists going to Fabian, going to the JCC. They're used all day. They're used by students going to the schools, you know, going towards JLS, Fair Meadow, and Gunn. And so those are the main, I would say the main uses, but they are used throughout the day. The next question is, how do you plan on addressing intersections, for example, Fabian and Charleston?
So that's, I mean, situational intersection by intersection. And of course, so Fabian and Charleston is not being addressed in this project, but we are coordinating with the Charleston Arrastradero Phase 3 project. So the intersection improvement will be constructed as part of that project.
Okay. How are we on time?
I think we could take should we take a couple more?
Sure, we're at 5 minutes, but we could take a couple more.
Okay. The next question is, if the off-street path is only widened where feasible, how will the flow be affected at those points where widening is not possible? How many such points are expected?
So we will get into that a little bit on later in the presentation. But in general, yes, we are looking to widen where it is feasible. And so we are not at the design phase yet. So right now, that's why we need your feedback. So please let us know if you have any ideas. But our goal is to not affect trees that's along the Waverly Bike Path. So that's one of our top priorities. But yes, later on in the presentation, we'll speak more to that. We'll speak more to that.
Okay. I think these other questions, there are some questions that are coming in around parking, and we haven't really talked about that yet, but I think we'll ask those questions after the next section about parking removal. Oh, one question is, what will the entrance to the path over 101 look like? So this is the Adobe Creek Reach Trail, I think is the question.
So that is it will be constructed with the Adobe Creek Reach Trail project. So it will not be addressed in this project, or it will not be constructed with this project.
Okay. I think that's probably it for now.
Okay. Thank you. With that, let's go ahead and jump back into the presentation. Before we do, as a reminder, if you change your settings at all during the break, please ensure you have selected your desired language, English or Spanish. Okay, so now we'll talk through examples of some of the potential improvements and treatments which could be implemented along the project corridors. We'll begin by sharing examples of different types of enhancements and bicycle facilities that we have been discussing. The first set of treatments are the most common forms of bike lanes, which can either be standard bike lanes like you see on the left of this photo, or buffered bike lanes like you see on the right. These treatments provide a clearly delineated space for one-way bike travel on a roadway. Standard bike lanes, such as those shown on the left, are the existing condition on East Meadow Drive and Fabian Way. Buffered bike lanes, such as those shown on the right, are generally the same, but provide additional striping on the pavement to create clear space between bicyclists and moving vehicles. This clear space also creates additional space for bicyclists to utilize in the event that a car door is open into the bike lane from a parked vehicle. Both of these treatments are used in many locations throughout Palo Alto. The next potential treatment is a protected bike lane, sometimes referred to as cycle tracks. This provides a space for bicycles that is separated from vehicle traffic by some kind of physical barrier, such as bollards, concrete curbs, or other vertical elements. For example, bollards are used in front of Green Middle School at Middlefield Road and North California Avenue. This essentially creates a separate right-of-way for bicyclists within the roadway to minimize interactions between vehicles and bicycles. These can be implemented quickly utilizing materials such as plastic bollards or delineators, similar to the example on the left from Los Gatos. This is also similar to the example mentioned previously for the bike route next to Green Middle School, except that that is a two-way protected bike lane, and this project would more likely consist of a one-way protected bike lane on each side of the street, similar to the photo on the left. When constructed permanently, protected bike lanes may be separated from adjacent vehicle traffic by concrete medians or other physical devices, such as shown in the photo on the right from McClellan Road in Cupertino. One specific version of protected bike lane is referred to as a parking protected bike lane and utilizes parked vehicles as part of the physical protection between the bike lane and moving traffic. This also creates a separate right-of-way for bicyclists in the roadway and still allows parking without interactions between drivers completing parking maneuvers. This treatment provides space between parked vehicles and the protected bike lane to avoid the vehicle door zone from passenger side of cars intruding into the bicyclist path. As with protected bike lanes, parking protected bike lanes can be implemented more quickly using plastic bollards or delineators, such as we see here along another section of Blossom Hill Road in Los Gatos on the left. When constructed permanently, parking protected bike lanes may be separated from adjacent vehicle traffic by concrete medians or other physical devices, such as shown in the photo on the right from Arrastradero Road. For the Waverly Path, the barrier between the path and school parking circulation could be modified to eliminate some of the constraints caused by the existing chain link fence. A shorter barrier, in particular, would not catch handlebars like the fence can, allowing bicyclists to ride closer to it and effectively making the path feel wider. A wide variety of materials can serve this purpose, including bollards, delineators, curbs, or a variety of other separators. These devices have been implemented adjacent to bike lanes or bicycle paths in various locations throughout the Bay Area, including Palo Alto and adjacent communities such as Menlo Park, Mountain View, and Redwood City. Another way to increase the physical space allocated to bicyclists and pedestrians is to widen the path. While it is expected that the barrier fence could be modified, the path could be modified at existing narrow pinch points to provide a walking and riding surface of more consistent width where feasible. The primary causes of pinch points are fire hydrants and trees adjacent to the path, and as shown here, the pavement could be widened into the grassy area away from the school adjacent to fire hydrants to provide a more consistent facility. If desired, any modification of the path towards the school property, the right in this photo, at existing trees would require coordination with the fire department and school district. In general, a goal of this project is to avoid significant impacts to trees along the path. What comes next? Let's take a minute to walk through what the next steps are and what other opportunities you will have to share your feedback. So here is a schedule of upcoming events. The purpose of today's session is to provide a general introduction to the project, its goals and requirements. In a moment, we'll also give a quick introduction to the online tools we have for you to provide feedback. Our next events will be a virtual tour of the project sites where we will discuss specific project locations, share potential improvement ideas, and be available to answer questions anyone may have to assist in utilizing the online engagement tools. These virtual tours are scheduled for Saturday, May 22nd at 11 a.m. and Thursday, May 27th at 6:30 p.m. After receiving feedback from the community, we will summarize what we've heard and share a summary of the findings and survey results at an event on Tuesday, June 22nd at 6:30 p.m. We will also identify a preferred improvement alternative result based on the results of the online survey and share it at this event. A full schedule of engagement opportunities and registration links for these events can be found at the project website. So, to gather community feedback, we have created an online survey for you to provide your input on existing conditions, as well as preliminary improvement ideas. When you open the project website, you will find a blue tab labeled Take the Survey that you can access by computer or mobile device. The survey contains a link that will take you to an interactive project web map where you can place pins to let us know your feedback, particularly regarding locations along the corridor where you'd like to see improvements such as buffered or protected bike lanes. You can click on the type of comment you would like to insert, then click where you would like to add the comment on the map. We're glad to hear as much feedback as possible, so please do not hesitate to place a comment similar to other comments you already see on the map. We encourage you to travel the project corridors to reacquaint yourself with them as you fill out these materials, particularly the mobile-friendly interactive web map that you see on the far right. In order to help you provide feedback, the survey includes both cross-section views, such as the image on the left, and links to the overall concept plan layouts of 2 preliminary improvement ideas for each of the corridors. The survey and web map will be open for feedback until May 31st. With that, we will now answer some of the questions you may have pertaining to the project. You can type your questions into the Q&A window, as I know some of folks have already been doing, or raise your hand if you would like to ask a question verbally. If we do not get to your question during this event, we will provide email contact information at the end, so you may reach out to the Office of Transportation directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So we will take some questions from the Q&A window first, and then we will go to raised hands. So Sylvia, could you let us know other questions we have from the Q&A window?
Yeah, so let's start with the parking questions. I tried to group them. One question is, has the city reached out to residents about auto parking removal? How was that received? Let's start with that one, really. Let's start with that.
So we have not, but it is, so this phase is really to come to the community to show the community with ideas we have. And after this phase, we're going to go to council and to get council's direction on next steps. And with that, when we come back with a second phase, we will be conducting a parking study, which will include reaching out to residents on parking removal.
The next question is, I live on East Meadow between Middlefield and Lewis Road. We have disabled people that need to park in front of the house. Will there be parking in front of the homes?
I have to,
I think we would need to find out.
yeah, I think at this phase is premature to determine if there will be parking removal at that specific segment.
Yeah. Okay, those are the ones. Okay, so now we have some protected bike lanes questions. With protected bike lanes, will existing driveways be blocked by physical barriers from across the street?
So I can take that. In the concepts, once you have the opportunity to review them, you'll see that there aren't any proposals that would cut any driveways off from having access to the street. So anywhere that there would be an existing driveway, that access is proposed to be maintained at this point, and there would be some other indication through pavement markings or colored pavement to give warning of the protected bikeway. But there wouldn't be any blockages caused.
And then for a parking protected bike lane, what road width is necessary? Are East Meadow Drive and Fabian Way wide enough to implement these?
So the overall road width, of course, varies by the full cross section, but the one requirement of a parking protected bikeway is that you must have a 3-foot gap in space. There must be a 3-foot buffer between the parked vehicles, the edge of the parking, and the edge of the bikeway to ensure that vehicles opening doors are not able to open the door all the way into the bikeway and disrupt the travel route for a bicyclist. So in general, the overall width that would be required for that then is determined by the number of travel lanes on top of that and bicycle facilities that may be going in the other direction, as well as parking. By and large, the finding is that East Meadow Drive and Fabian Way both can accommodate parking protected bikeways, but do require modifications to the amount of space allocated. In the case of East Meadow Drive to parking would need to be removed in one direction. In the case of Fabian Way, it would likely maintaining parking with a parking protected bikeway would require removing a travel lane in each direction.
All right, so a couple path questions. How will the Waverly Path project impact the homes, fences, and large trees along that path?
So our goal is to not cause any significant impacts to the wooden fence or the trees along the Waverly bike path.
Okay, I thought I had another path question here, but I don't see it. Okay, will a traffic light be installed at Fabian and East Meadow?
No, this project will not consider traffic light signal improvement at Fabian and Meadow.
Okay. And vehicle traffic at JLS is dangerous because there's no left turn lane and bicycles and cars compete with each other. I guess this is more of a comment, but did you want to address it, Joanna?
Yes, so maybe Steve can speak to it in a little bit more detail, but in one of our, if you click on our survey and one of our concept plans for East Meadow, we have considered that, and there is a proposal idea for a left turn lane at that intersection. I don't know, Stevie, you can add more detail to that.
Yeah, so in general, the width of the roadway on East Meadow at Waverly is sufficient to allow there to be a left turn lane as well as the through lane in each direction and bicycle facilities in both directions. But parking would need to be restricted on the approach to the intersection on each side, as you would essentially be using the space from the parking lane to create the left turn lane. So there is space for that.
Yeah, and to be clear, there's already parking restrictions at that intersection in those locations. So So that is happening right now. Another question about, will the virtual tours be recorded so people can view at their convenience?
Yes, it will be recorded and posted on the city's YouTube channel, as well as our webpage, maybe within the week.
And then someone asked a question. Have you considered using streets that are lightly traveled by cars as an alternative? For example, Mayview runs between Meadow and Charleston and connects to Ross and later Fabian. It might make sense to provide a bike path through Mitchell Park itself to connect to Mayview. I'm gonna answer this one. So yes, in fact, I use that sometimes. I like to go that route on my bike sometimes. But this grant was written for these specific streets, and so we can't apply the money to the route that you're suggesting, but I like your idea. There's another question. I think you've answered it, Steve, but this is more of a, I guess it's a question. It feels as though there will be much less space for automobile travel. How will delivery vans and food delivery to stores be accommodated on East Meadow Drive?
Yeah, and I'm just pausing for a second because we have Ingrid translating downstream. So
Sorry.
That's okay.
Sure. It feels as though there will be much less space for automobile travel. How will delivery vans and food delivery to stores be accommodated on East Meadow Drive?
Okay. So in there's two different ways, I guess, to think about vehicle space. One is the number of lanes, which I think, as we mentioned, East Meadow Drive is proposed to maintain the same number of vehicle travel lanes, since it's already by and large one travel lane in each direction. In both concepts for East Meadow Drive that are potential ideas, there is space for parking on one side of the street. And what that means is that we would be able to potentially choose our location strategically for how we provide that parking to ensure there is space for people to pull over, park, and so on. In the event that it is a protected bikeway that would physically restrict delivery vans from pulling into the bike lane, what would most likely have to happen then is a FedEx or UPS driver delivering to a home on East Meadow would have to park in the side that has the parking lane and walk across the street to deliver. They would not be able to park on, they wouldn't be able to exit the vehicle travel lane in the same direction as that house. Fabian Way, one of the options would potentially reduce the number of travel lanes, but it actually, the option that reduces travel lanes would better serve the pickup and drop off traffic by providing that parking space.
I think we addressed this, but someone asked, how will the new bike bridge connect with Fabian or other streets?
So the Highway 101 bike bridge includes repavement of the Adobe Creek Reach Trail. I want to see, Steve, you can pull up the project map, which connects directly to, well, not directly, but it does connect to Fabian.
Well, it connects both to East Meadow.
Oh, East Meadow, sorry, East Meadow.
East Meadow, but you can also get to it from West Bayshore if you keep going. So, right.
So you see the orange is where the Adobe Creek Reach Trail is. And at the end of that is the new bike and ped bridge. And the green is our project segments. Are there any other questions, Sylvia?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to pick up some new ones came in as we were answering those.
Yep, no problem.
If you want, we can go to verbal and people can ask their questions.
Sure.
Let's do that.
We can switch to raised hands if you would like. So if at this point you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand. So it should be, if you look at the bottom of your screen, there should be a raised hand button. So feel free to click on that and I will unmute you and call on your name. Give me 1 second. Arthur Keller.
Hi, thank you for doing this. I'd like to ask about the intersection of Fabian and Charleston and how that intersects, how that relates to the Fabian Way, Fabian Road that you're planning to make improvements to. The intersection of Fabian and Charleston is proposed to have only one right lane to make a left turn, to make a right turn from Charleston onto Fabian.
So the Fabian and Charleston intersection is being constructed under the Charleston and Rastradero Phase 3 project. So we are coordinating with that project, but this project is not going to address that intersection.
But therefore, you only have one lane coming in. So how does that affect what the decision for moving further on Fabian is? One lane or two lanes?
I mean, we will coordinate. On I mean, we don't know what this is our first meeting on this project, and we're here to gauge community interest in doing anything on these streets. So you know, it's too soon for us to say which option for Fabian the community would like. We want to hear from everybody, so we will go from there. If it turns out that, you know, it is something different, I mean, we will have to work with Public Works on the Charleston Rastradero design.
When will that be built?
Charleston Rastradero?
Yes.
That's I think council is trying to figure that out right now through the budget process.
Yeah, because we have to know when those three things that interconnect: Fabian Way, East Charleston and Fabian intersection, and Charleston and Rastradero, I mean, and San Antonio intersection. All those have to be built together.
Yeah, we're watching all of them, Arthur. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Kenneth Fall. Please unmute yourself.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so my principal concern has to do with the elimination of curbside or street side parking. In that there are several people on East Meadow who have businesses in their home. They have clients come, and in particular, I have an assistant who is handicapped, and losing parking would be a major complication. Is there any way to get input rather than be surprised about the loss of parking?
Well, that's why we're here. Oh, go. Sorry, please
with
finish.
Respect to the problems you had with respect to the delivery issues, what about the garbage pickup and also the special 2 days for the refuse pickup? How would that be? How would that work?
Also, that's why we are here. And, you know, like Sylvia said, this is our first meeting. We're not proposing parking removal here. It is an idea that we have, and we are here to hear, you know, what the community has to say and what does the community support or not support. And even if there is support for, say, parking removal on East Meadow or Fabian, we will conduct a parking removal study or a parking study to ensure that the proposal that we will make actually works for the segments or East Meadow or Fabian.
Give special weight to the residents there rather than just a survey with, you know, the community, the people who actually have lived here and consider that a valuable asset.
Yep,
be
sorry.
able to park.
Yep, sorry, I apologize. I mean, and on top of the parking study, we'll definitely have our next round of community engagement will include this study and also reaching out to the residents and talking to the residents about parking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Penny Elson?
Thanks. To that last speaker's comment, I think it would be really helpful to provide some clarity for people. With Charleston and Rostadero, this was a really big issue, and it's important that staff did a really good study of where parking was being used, first of all, but second of all, they went out to residents individually and talked to them about what their needs were. And I think that was very helpful toward getting support of the project. So I hope that that kind of outreach can be done here, because it sounds like there are a lot of needs we might be unaware of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. That's why we're here.
And to follow on that, what's the process for doing that? Like how does, like this gentleman, how does someone like that contribute his concerns about perhaps a specific address?
You can email us at the email that we're going to show at the end of the presentation. It's also super easy to remember, transportation@cityofpaloalto.org.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I don't see any more raised hands. Do we have any more questions, Sylvia, in the Q&A window that we have not addressed?
Yeah, I think so. Would a light be possible on the Bryant Street Bikeway and East Meadow? Some bike riders are crossing East Meadow or turning right or left on either direction of East Meadow onto the bikeway. So that is a good question, and this is from Alice. That's a great question, Alice. This project does not include additional traffic lights. This project is about upgrading the bike lanes. But I understand that intersection is very busy, and we had in another project, in our Bicycle Boulevards project, potential treatments for how to handle that intersection with the bike boulevard on Bryant and East Meadow. And so that's going to be addressed through a different project. Okay, someone said, just to follow up on my previous question, both proposals online show bollards that are right in front of existing driveways. Were these just mistakes?
So the answer to that would be yes, if so, and apologies for that. The intention is not to block off access to any driveways, whether they be residential, commercial, school, otherwise. So we'll follow up on that and make sure that gets resolved. If not now, for the following phase of the project when the alternatives are shared.
Another question, currently Fair Meadow Elementary has angled off-street parking entered from Meadow Drive. If that is preserved, how would a bike lane, protected or otherwise, be affected?
I will assume that question is for me also. That is certainly one of the more challenging locations that would be considered as part of East Meadow Drive. The current proposal seeks to maintain that parking, that access point, but to try to use pavement markings and green paint to better clarify how those interactions would occur and raise driver awareness of the presence of bicycles in that area. This is not entirely dissimilar to what you would see today on Stanford Avenue near the Dish parking, where there's the angled back-in parking. This is obviously not back-in parking, but where there's the marked buffer and bike lane through that area with the green paint. So that is what is currently proposed. We have investigated other options, and the geometry constraints make it quite difficult without really affecting the ability for pickup drop-off activity at the schools. So we'd certainly be interested in hearing feedback from others if they have any about how that may best operate, or if they have any other ideas there. But yeah, right now it does essentially even a protected bikeway would become more of a shared space near the parking right now.
Okay. This question came in. Will bike boxes be considered at the Middlefield and Waverly signals? So East Meadow, Middlefield, and then East Meadow, Waverly at JLS.
So the current version of the concept does not show that, but it also is not necessarily something that would be precluded. The one consideration is the provision of bike boxes does change how turn movements happen at the intersection and where vehicles stop. So one thing that would potentially need to be looked at a bit more is how that affects the operations for all the users, and also how that fits in for exposure to the bicyclists. Generally, obviously, bike boxes are an improvement to try to give bicycles better visibility and position at the intersection. But we can also revisit to consider other options there in addition to bike boxes potentially. And I should add, we'd also have to look for this project likely look at what the intersection's detection equipment looks like for the traffic signals, because you'd be moving where everyone stops.
I think there's a hand raised. Joanna, you're muted.
Sorry, give me 1 second. Let me go to the hand raise. Arnott Bollins? Arnott?
Yeah, thank you. Apologize if you answered this question already. I was away for a second, but I was wondering whether there were also vehicle counts and speed measurements, because this could inform what kind of protection is needed for pedestrians and bicyclists.
Yes, so we did indeed go out and do vehicle counts and bicycle counts as well. I don't know if you needed more details, but we did do those counts. And I don't know if Steve, you wanted to add a little bit more on like the times and days that we did.
Sure. So what we have been looking at is more recently collected data. There was not, start by saying there was limited historic data available for the corridors that was recent enough to be instructive and also pre-COVID. So that was our first goal, was to find that data. We were able to get that in some limited locations, and then also collected new data that is representative of current conditions. It's within the last couple of months, so something more akin to what's out there right now. What we generally found from the current collection, of course, volumes are a little bit depressed compared to what they normally would be, particularly during commute periods. We've found more generally that volumes tend to be spread differently during current conditions. But the speed data was more noticeable, that actually, because in times you have a little bit less traffic, you may have a little bit higher speeds. And on Fabian Way in particular, the observations showed that there were some pretty high speeds at times out there.
And this data is available on the project website?
No, this data is not currently available on the project website.
Will it be made available, or?
Yes, it will likely be a part of the staff report to PTC and council.
Okay, thank you.
I found the missing path question that I asked before. It was this one from Art. The Waverly Path is a multi-use path. What is recommended or standard width for multi-use paths? I know that in the VTA bicycle technical guidelines that we use in Santa Clara County jurisdictions, it's 10 feet is a minimum, but wider is better. And we also like to put in, if possible, though I don't think it's possible here, like jogger or running paths on the side with DG. But I don't know, Steve, if you have any other comments you want to say about this particular multi-use path. Okay.
Nope, that's right. And we recognize that the path as it exists today, that the other piece of that is normally that would be the width Sylvia describes is absent of any obstructions as well. And in particular, throughout the entire length of the path, the presence of the fence reduces the effective width because of the concern for people catching their handlebars in the chain links. So that's why we also are trying to evaluate options that would modify what that barrier looks like. So at the very least, try to get the most use of the space that is available.
Thanks. Do we have time for, I have one more.
Sure, let's take one more question.
Are speed bumps also being considered? Many cars travel these streets around 35 miles an hour, especially Fabian, but also East Meadow.
So the city does have a traffic calming program. So any proposal or sort of suggestions for traffic calming will likely have to go through that request, but it will not be considered with this project. So it is 7:30, which brings tonight's webinar to an end. So for the most updated information, please visit our project webpage at cityofpaloalto.org/bikeways. So if you have any questions that we didn't cover, please reach out to the Office of Transportation at transportation@cityofpaloalto.org with the subject line South Palo Alto Bikeways Project. So once again, thank you everyone for spending this evening with us. And I hope you have a great night.